to you, but I'm now going to move to Raymond Vickery, a former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. Raymond, thank you very much for being here with us. One of the most iconic lines from Trump's first 100 days, drill, baby, drill. Of course, Trump looking at US companies, looking to boost the US economy, bringing products that are being produced into the United States. And this led to the tariffs that we have seen, of course, rocking the global markets. But in your opinion, has his tariff action been successful?
Well, thanks very much for having me, Joshua. No, it hasn't been successful. It has sowed chaos throughout the world and domestically as well. The stock market in the United States, largely based upon these ill-considered, ham-handed approach to tariffs, has had or is heading to have the worst April since 1932. I think that long term, the most disastrous aspect of this approach of the so-called reciprocal tariffs, which really aren't, and then the base tariff of 10%, 25% on automobiles and so forth, has been to destroy the world trading system, the WTO, and before that, the General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade, in which you had a consensus approach, most favored nation, so that you could accommodate differences in the economies of developing nations such as India, and be able to, at the same time, move toward a freer trade approach. That has been completely destroyed in favor of a sort of bilateral transactional real estate mogul approach, which of course is congenial to the president because that's what he fancies himself. And it's not based upon overall what's good in the long run for the United States of America, but what can I get out of it right now that satisfies my particular goals, the president's personal goals, as well as what he views as the nation. So I think it's very, very disturbing. The whole rejection of a U.S. role as leader of the free world, and therefore having to look at the economic side of things in a broader geopolitical context as opposed to a transactional approach, is out the window. Where this stops, nobody really knows, because you can't really depend upon what the president is saying at any given time as to being what he'll do the next time.
Yes.
His apologists say it's just a great negotiating technique, but it certainly hasn't proven that so far.
Yes, Raymond, absolutely. I think we could probably fill 24 hours worth of programming going over all the implications and ramifications of the tariff action that Trump has announced. Of course, Canada has its own discourse with the 51st state narrative that we've covered heavily following the Canadian election. But I want to look at Trump's discourse with China. Of course, this tit-for-tat retaliatory tariff action that we've seen, further extenuating the fragility caused to the global markets. While we're looking back at Trump's 100 days, I also want to look forward. How do you think that Trump's actions during this period, specifically relating to China, might impact the weeks, months and years to come for US consumers?
Well, I'm very much concerned. The 145% sort of across the board tariffs is nothing less than complete economic disengagement. Now, there are those who say, well, this is just a negotiating technique and it'll all work out. There are those who say, and I think Trump himself has said, that negotiations are taking place, that the Chinese say no. You can't negotiate basically on a gun to your head, if you will, with 145% tariff. The Chinese situation, as we all know, is a very difficult one. It is one in which India, the United States, Japan, South Korea, other nations of the area, Philippines, all have a very common interest. But instead of taking an approach which allows us to move forward together, it's one of alienation, really, through the tariff policy, and then really not having any game plan, if you will, as to how to resolve matters with China. The idea that you're just going to have President Trump and President Xi sit down and work it out on a 1 or 2 day basis in conversation. That might have worked for Trump Tower in New York, but it doesn't work internationally. There are problems with China, but they take a concerted approach, looking not just what happens today, but what happens long term to be able to resolve it. And thus far, we've seen no evidence of any such plan in order to be able to resolve that. And of course, we're playing with fire here. This is not just a question of economics, but it's a question of what happens politically. And if you just completely disengage from China and don't have any relations with them, with 145% tariff, then it makes China emboldened to take over portions of India, to take over portions of Taiwan, and to act in accordance with their very worst instincts. And we may not like what China's doing, and they have abused the trade system, there's no question, and they have acted outside rule of law in the South China Sea. But this approach, this one-to-one transactional, real estate-oriented approach is not going to bear fruit and puts the whole world in a very dangerous time.
Raymond, thank you. You will also be staying with us. Also joining us on this Trump 100.